Everybody wants to know if the Detroit Lions are really back. Because on paper, this looks like the perfect bounce-back setup. The win total is sitting at 10.5, the schedule is one of the easiest in football, and Detroit still has the quarterback, the weapons, and the culture that made them dangerous in the first place. But this isn't as simple as saying the Lions are back, baby. The offensive line is changing, the depth has taken some hits, there's a new voice helping shape the offense. And after a disappointing season, Detroit has to prove that last year was just a setback, not the beginning of a slide. So the real question is this: are the Lions walking into the easiest path back to the top? Or is this the year we find out how strong this team really is?
Reasons for optimism for the Lions. They're back. Over-under's 10.5 wins for the Lions. They have, per Sharp Football, the easiest schedule.
Yeah.
And it's in its own little tier here.
It really is.
Easiest schedule.
Again, for just a recap, for anyone that didn't listen to the first show or anyone just listening now, generally, if you look at that rank of strength of schedule according to the projected win total, so not looking at last year, how many games they won, looking at how many games Vegas thinks they're going to win this year, the strength of schedule is basically only 5 teams you need to actually focus on. There's 3 teams with an unusually easy strength of schedule relative to everybody else, and then there's 2 teams with an unusually difficult strength of schedule relative to everybody else. We've already talked about them, Miami and Arizona. Everybody else is basically in the middle, right? Obviously, there's differences between the 4th and the 30th easiest strength of schedule, but they're effectively, the league is more or less in the middle. 5 teams are outliers, and the Lions are as big an outlier as anybody on the positive side.
So I do think, roster-wise, I do think their depth has taken a bit of a hit over the last couple of years. So on that end, glancing at the schedule and the reason why it's the easiest, their NFC West crossover game is with Arizona. So they don't have to face Seattle or the Rams this year. They get the NFC South.
This is also why Arizona's is difficult, right? Because we expect the Lions to bounce back. We expect the Lions. They theoretically should be one of the easier teams the Cardinals are playing, and they're not.
Absolutely. And then they play the AFC team division is the East, so you get Jets and Dolphins on the schedule. You get the NFC South with the Saints, Panthers, Falcons, and Bucks on there. So that's why it's on the easier end. And then there's a crossover game with the Tennessee Titans in the AFC South. I mean, that's what their like extra crossover game. So it is it's on the easier side. I still think it'll be a challenging. I think it'll be a good division, the North. I think that the interdivision games are going to be good, but the Lions are poised for a bounce back here. So that's why the number's 10.5, coming off of a disappointing 2025 season for the Lions. But I think they're back, baby. They're back.
Yeah,
I'm going over for the Lions.
I think they will bounce back. They do have a task on their hands now to, I think, repair the roster and get it back to being as good as it was at its peak. And maybe they've done that already. There's, as much as I've outlined question marks on the offensive line, like if you see a big step forward, if Blake Miller hits the ground running, if Rattledge takes a step forward next year, if Mahogany suddenly emerges as like a really decent player with a bit of development as well, and if Penei Sewell is every bit as good at left tackle as he was at right tackle, I mean, there's a world where that offensive line is really good again because of the young players that they've added to it. It's just, if I was a betting person, like setting the odds on where it would end up, I would be more conservative than optimistic on that.
So be a betting person. Where are you going on the total?
What was our total?
10.5.
It's a lot of wins.
It is.
All right, I'm going to go over.
I'm leaning toward the schedule help here.
Yeah.
For the Lions.
I do think that makes a big difference. Again, the reason I say there's only 5 teams to focus on is because, generally speaking, I think if you're in the middle of the pack, I don't think your schedule makes any difference really at all. But if you do have one of these massive outlier, I mean, we saw last season, right? The Patriots ended up with one of the easiest schedules in the history of the game, and it made a big difference. Like it's not they were a good team anyway, but absolutely they were aided by the schedule.
I'd have to look at this closer, but the disparity within the NFC North, this has to be the widest disparity of schedule strength. So you have the Lions at 1,
and the
easiest
Bears
schedule.
One of the hardest.
Yeah, the Bears are at 27, one of the hardest, and dead smack in the middle, Vikings 16 and Packers 17.
Yeah.
You don't usually the divisions are some like the Bengals are 3 and the Browns are 4. and that goes all the way down to, I don't know, middle of the pack for whoever else in the AFC North. You just don't get the wide ranges as much. I see, the Jets are at 5 and the Dolphins are at 31. It's not unprecedented, but it's significant, I think, in the NFC North for this year, the way things are playing out.
Yeah, it's those third place teams from last year. I think they're screwing a lot of these things, because
like the disappointing third place teams.
The expected bounce back from the Chiefs is messing with a few different people's schedules, strength of schedule.
Speaking of that, last time we talked to you, I think was Combine. You were talking about the weapons you're inheriting, but from watching them on a video standpoint. Now that you've got them on the field, I know there's no pads and a few guys still need to get on the field, but just your impressions of the weapons that you're inheriting and how much fun you might be able to have with some of these pieces.
It's been great. I mean, it's been fun out there now, even in pajamas. I think guys are working hard, trying to come together as a unit, trying to improve as individuals. There's a lot of talent out there. A lot of guys are playing at a really high level, so it's been a lot of fun.
What is your number one focus this offseason? What's the progression of what you're trying to?
I think the goal is always going to be get better at everything we do. That's me as a coach, that's individuals as players, that's us as units. I think that's got to be the focus, and certainly now, because there's not a game plan or an opponent in the imminent future, I think you can dial in on some of the details of that a little bit better. So that's really kind of where we're honing in on.
Like the balance of, you're a new coordinator, so there's new parts of the offense, but a lot of it, I'm sure, is similar. Are you starting from level 101, or have you found it more advanced, like when you started at Arizona?
I'd say it's a mix. I say every year you try to start back at the beginning and make sure that you build the foundation. I mean, the nature of the NFL, you're going to have some new faces in the room, coaches and players included, and making sure everybody's on the same page. I think that's a big part of the offseason. But I think it's important to start from the beginning and build the right foundation so that when you do get to those higher level conversations or you do get into game plan mode, you're where you want to be.
Drew, do you try to keep, large chunks in place to make the transition more seamless, or do you really try to bring in your vocab and put that on these guys?
I think it's a mix. A little bit of a unique situation because there's a number of vets who have played at a really high level. So I don't want to come in here and rip it all up and make them learn an entirely new language. But there's going to be tweaks, there's going to be changes, and I think they've done a great job of handling that.
That center-quarterback relationship is so vital for an offense, obviously. What specific things do you do at this time of year to help Jared and Cade build that rapport, either on the field or off the field?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think a lot of those are conversations in the meeting room. We talk about being on the same page, watching tape, watching practice, going back through some stuff. And then on the field, some of that's going to take place naturally because you are doing some of those things where you're in and out of the huddle, you're seeing different looks. Our defense is doing a great job of challenging us and making us think through and talk through some stuff. So it's been great to see that relationship kind of grow.
Is it for you to have a guy in Jared who's been around for now his 11th season? He's seen it all. There isn't anything a defense can probably throw at him. When you're installing an offense with a guy that's seen it all like that, just how much easier is the process overall?
It definitely makes the job easier. I think, and it's not just him. You have some vets in the room that have played a lot of football that I can lean on to coach some things and to say, hey, you've done this at a really high level. Saint, Panay, even J-Mo and Gibby, hey, you guys have done some great things. How do you think about this? How do you coach this? Let me hear that in front of the room. Let other guys learn from your experience. And I think they've done a great job of embracing that and trying to make the players around them better.
What is your process for understanding how players in the offense learn best and how to effectively teach the material at this time of year?
It's a great question. I think it's something we as coaches might be the most important thing we do. And I feel like my job is to stay on top of that. The position coaches, do that at a really high level. And I love the guys that we got and the way that they're going about that so far this offseason. But it's, it's an individual thing. And you got to, you pull from other experience and other guys you've worked with. You try to get that guy to communicate with you on how he learns best and what he needs from us to be successful. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal.
Like a different sense of urgency after missing the postseason last year, obviously with the type of players they attracted, and you coming in, do you feel that? And if so, if you do feel that sense of urgency to get back on track, just how do you help this team, as far as getting back on track?
Two-part question. I'll try to go with the first question first. From an urgency standpoint, I think that's the nature of the league. I think you're always there. It's a now league. We got to show up. We got to get better. We got to be where we want to be. I think you're always going to feel that to some extent. And then my role in that, is kind of we talked about, is to be the best version of myself and to push the players and bring out the best in them, to make sure I'm growing as a coach and pulling on the right things and learning from the right people. So far it's been an awesome experience.
And he said the plan is Jameer to be kind of the bell cow back this year. Where do you see from last year to this year the most room for growth in his role?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the Gibbs. I think it can change as we go. I think a lot of it's going to be dictated by what we're good at as a unit. Where are we the best? Where are we the most effective? Who are we playing? And how do we utilize his skill set to build on that? I mean, he does so many things at a high level that I don't think there's necessarily a ceiling or a cap on what that could look like. But I think that's going to be dictated a lot by the people around him and how pieces all fit together.
Last season, this offense wasn't able to access the play-action game as much as it probably wanted to. How much is that an emphasis, and how much does that correlate to more deep shots potentially?
Yeah. And I don't want to punt on the question, I guess you would say, but it's a little bit of what we just talked about with Gibby. Some of that's going to be dictated by who we're playing, what the matchups are, what we look like in protection. But it's definitely going to be a big part of who we want to be, because that indecision on whether it's run or pass, I think, is so critical to being effective in any offense in the NFL. And I think it fits the skill set of our quarterback, number one. And I think it takes some pressure off the offensive line, which in this league is important. And it allows you to utilize your skill players in an effective manner on base downs. So it's something we're working on, and we're going to continue to get better, and we're going to see how good we can be at it to see how much we want to use it.
With the physical limitations of these early practices, Drew, what are your points of emphasis with young, in particular young trench players?
Yeah, I think the big thing is the learning aspect, right? Of we're still processing, we're still running different schemes, we're still making sure that we're assignment sound and know where we're going and how we're doing it, and can do it quickly, right? Because the game happens fast. So I think that's a big part of the offseason is how well can you think, how quickly can you think, and then the third piece of that on the field is how well do you communicate to those around you, right? Like, is everybody on the same page? When you see something, are you saying it? And that way the guy next to you can react appropriately. I think that's a big part of what this offseason is, because we can't bang, and that's just the nature of the rules.
Sure, you get an opportunity to work with a young quarterback in Luke Altmaier. What are some points of emphasis for him, and how do you like so far what he's picked up in early parts of OTAs?
I think the emphasis is very similar to what we just talked about with the O-line. How quickly can you pick it up? You got to call the plays. You got to get in and out of the huddle. At the quarterback position, you're responsible for the 10 other guys. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Or when they're not, and can you correct it before it matters? I think that's a big part of the process of playing quarterback, and something that Jared, obviously, who's been in the league for such a long time, does at such a high level that you almost start to take it for granted. And some of the young guys got to get there. And to watch him do that, I think, is great for Luke. I think he's really embraced that. And I think that's been kind of the fun thing to get to work with him. You're building it from the ground up because he doesn't have that foundation right now. And so we're trying to set that foundation. I think he's embracing that challenge.
What's the thing he's done that's impressed you most so far, whether it's leadership, behind the closed doors, with his arm, anything that
I think he just unflappable, I guess, would be the word that comes to mind. Like he every day he's the same guy. He puts in the same process. He works. He never seems overwhelmed by what we're asking him to do or how we're asking him to do it. And he's willing to learn and to work at it, which has been great.
Dan just said that he doesn't lack confidence. How have you seen that express itself, I guess?
I think in a lot of the ways that he walks on the field and walks in the meeting room and is willing to answer questions, and the way he plays the game. I think there's, especially with some young quarterbacks, you can see some nerves in the way that they call plays or get out of the huddle or act post-snap. Whereas with him, I think he has a ton of confidence in his ability, and you feel that in the way he just goes in and out of the huddle and plays the game.
How different has this experience been for you? I mean, the three previous jobs, you came in with new coaching staffs and you're kind of implementing a culture collectively. You kind of step in here and the culture, the foundation's been laid for years. Does that make the job easier for you in some ways?
I think it goes in both directions. I think obviously that's a big part of what I feel like my role is to integrate myself into the culture that they built here, because it is so impressive and it has succeeded at such a high level. But I lean on the guys, the staff, and some of these guys I've worked with before or known just from being around the league, and they've been great in kind of helping build me up and make me understand how we do things and what's expected. And I feel like that's a big part of my growth as a coach and coming into this organization. It's been fun.
The Rams made a big move getting Myles Garrett. What does he do to wreck a offensive coordinator's game plan?
I was in the building with him for 3 years, so I saw it firsthand. He's a great player. Kind of like the guys we talked about on this offense, I don't know if there's a weakness in his game. He does so many things at such a high level, plays with such violence. So great player. And we were talking about earlier, I know right now he's not on the schedule, so I hope we're playing him this year.
What's your view of the wide receiver room as an entire unit as a whole?
Say that one more time.
Just your view of that wide receiver room as a collective unit.
Yeah, it's a really strong unit. I think you got a lot of different skill sets of guys that do different things well. Especially at the top of that room, there's not much they don't do well, which is always a good problem to have. But and I think Saint being the vet, the leader in that room, the competition you feel on a daily basis and the way they go through their drills and the way they practice and the way they sit in the meeting room, I think is palpable. And I think it needs to be there to bring out the best in all of us.
What do you see from Isaac Sessa? Like, we saw these glimpses of just phenomenal plays last year, the one-handed grabs, the tight window catches. What do you think best case scenario is for him this fall?
Yeah, I think the best case scenario, and you talked about like those highlight plays are going to show up. I think the consistency that he pushes for every day of just getting in and out of his breaks, of using his body and his size to his advantage, because it's certainly one of the things that separates him from a number of players in this league. And then just carving out any role you can. I think that's everybody's job, is figure out what you do well, do it at a really high level, and then it's our job as coaches to make sure you're put in that position to go help us win.
Hey, Drew, go ahead.
Does Panay look like a guy who's making a position switch? And I guess where are the challenges in what he's doing?
He looks like, if not the best, one of the best tackles in football. Left, right, middle, wherever you want to put him. He's extremely impressive, and I think he takes a lot of pride in that. So I would say no would be the short answer to that question. But again, like a lot of the guys in this building, just the way that he approaches the job and the way that he thinks about the game and the way he comes in and works and wants to get better every day, regardless of where we line him up, I think has been really impressive.
Dan has always empowered Jared to have a role in the kind of design and shape of the offense. What have those conversations been like between you guys, and have you already begun to exchange ideas on what this thing might look like?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, probably my first day on the job, we were exchanging ideas on what it can look like, how we do things, what we believe in, how we coach certain things. And I think that is a day-to-day, minute-to-minute process. It's happening on the field, happens in the meeting room, it happens via text or via FaceTime, during the week when things come up or things are on his brain or vice versa. So it's been a ton of fun, as we talked about his experience and where he can pull from, and I come from a different background and haven't been around him as much. So just, hey, how he's asking questions, I'm asking questions. I think to some extent when you get into this business, those are the things you love about the job and love about the game. So it's been great.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.